All right, guys, welcome back. Earlier on today, one of our members on Discord wanted to know what's the monthly close looking like for Bitcoin. In fact, if I was to say the entire crypto market, it's pretty much the same thing, because what you'll notice is the total market cap, the candles on the chart, pretty much follow what Bitcoin does, what Ethereum does. So I wasn't looking too much at the other ones. I was just looking at Bitcoin and trying to see what's going on. I can see Bitcoin right now kind of holding support, even though it's not exactly a support, but holding support around the candle we had in May. I am looking at my chart, it's just over there. The candle we had in May, so the May monthly close was a bearish monthly close, and we're currently holding support around there. Of course, if we want to be bullish, we want to at least get above April's candle, but of course that's a long shot, right? So I'm not too concerned about that. I have mentioned to Bobby on Discord, I said, and I've given him a few screenshots and whatnot, that what do you call this, the monthly doesn't look that good. I'm not too concerned about it, because if you start looking at a bigger picture, like for example, if you go to the quarterly and everything and start seeing at the percentage, you start noticing a pattern. So it seems like every 4 cycles, right? Every 4 years, sorry, not cycles. Every 4 years we have a cycle. Now, I don't normally talk about a 4-year cycle, but when it comes to looking at the percentages and whatnot, you can see a clear pattern that every on the 4-yearly cycle, what you get to see is, like, on the last quarter we end up being kind of bullish, right? And you can see the similar patterns, like, you know, sometimes it's every 2 years, sometimes every 1 year, but what you look for is the patterns. Now, when you look at the end of the year, you can see an interesting pattern form, and that's what I saw, and I was like, okay, that's quite cool. You know, that we could be bullish around October, November, December, which will be very interesting to see. So any bearishness right now in September, I'm not too concerned about, right? It's only the end of the 3rd quarter, not too concerned about it, but quite excited that we might have good opportunities to buy in if we want to, so I will be looking at those. Other than that, you know what, market's doing really good. You know, again, you know, when I say good, a lot of people got to understand, like, don't get excited with all the pumps, guys. You know, pumps are great, yeah, fine. You know, if you're in it, great for you. But if you're not in it, then you know, you want to be thinking about going into this. Now, I'm not sure if I've published this video, but I did mention something about Bitcoin, a fascinating fact about Bitcoin, on another video, but I'm not quite sure if I've published it or not. Probably haven't. I mentioned about how Bitcoin has 21 million coins, right? Now, everyone knows that, right? You know, I'm sure you know that, right? And if you don't, then what are you, under a rock? Bitcoin has 21 million coins, but also each Bitcoin contains 100 million Satoshis. I'm not sure if you knew that as well. Probably you did, right? Great. But also, what you didn't probably know, and I'm sure you didn't know this, is that each Satoshi can be upgraded to contain another 100 million of micro Satoshi or nano Satoshi, right? So those are the fascinating facts, that yes, we cannot change the quantity of Bitcoin, which is 21 million coins, but any denomination below that, whether it be a Satoshi, Natoshi, Katoshi, Patoshi, God knows, whatever you want to call it, we can have new decimal points, right, or new numbers or new separation. So it's infinitely divisible. That's the key here, right? Bitcoin is infinitely divisible. That doesn't make it inflationary, right? You can just divide it into more and more bits, right, as the value increases over time, which we hope so. So again, this is not a financial advice, and none of this is financial advice, but we hope the price of Bitcoin goes up. If Bitcoin goes up to 100k, 150k, 200k, 250k, then of course the Satoshis, so you divide a Bitcoin, say for example you have 100k Bitcoin, you divide that by 100 million, right? And then whatever number you get, that's your Satoshi. But of course, if Bitcoin now becomes, you know, $1 million a coin, then the same applies. But then those Satoshis are now increased in value, and of course that means that, you know, you wanted to go and buy a loaf of bread or whatever, and now it costs you, before it cost you 100 satoshis, example, today it's costing you 10 satoshis, or tomorrow it's going to cost you half a satoshi. Now we don't have half a satoshi, so in that scenario we can upgrade the entire protocol to allow for another denomination, whether we call it Nakoshi, whatever you want to call it, can be made. So the satoshi can be divided as well, infinitely divisible, right? I mean, literally, this is like better than sound money. I mean, sound money is when you tap 2 coins and they make a little sound, right? Back, that's like when gold used to make a specific sound. So similar way, you can now have actual money that is infinitely divisible. It's unbelievable, right? So that's what I'm looking at, and the reason is I think, again, I'm not quite sure if I've mentioned it or not. So I've been getting a lot of questions from a lot of people who coincidentally and funnily enough, right, have actually not entered Bitcoin yet. They haven't bought any Bitcoin. What's more funny is they have bought crypto. They've bought Dogecoin, they've bought Shiba Inu, they've bought, I mean, some guys have bought Solana and whatnot. I'm like, you've bought, you know, 1 or 2 of the top 10 coins, right? But how come you've never bought the top ones? And they're like, yeah, but it's too expensive. Is it? I was like, wow, okay. You know, and one guy was like, you know, should I buy now? I was like, well, you tell me, you know. So I got his answer, and the question was very simple. If Bitcoin's at 25k, should I buy it? So I said to him, I said, well, in 5 years time or 10 years time, if Bitcoin's at 250k, what would you tell me about today? Should you buy or should you not? He's like, I should buy. I'm like, right, so then you've answered your own question, because that's the fact, right? You know, a Bitcoin could be worth whatever. Of course, it's a speculation, but the point is, you know, as demand increases, so does the value, you know, because the supply is reduced, right? That's what it is, because you will never have more than 21 million coins. And remember, 19 million of those coins have already been deployed. So if 19 million of those coins have already been deployed, and there's approximately about 2-point-something million coins remaining, you've got a problem on your hands. But there's always a solution, and the solution is the satoshis, right? So you buy some satoshis, you know, you'll be all right, no problem. Just think about it that way, that, okay, I'm buying satoshis, right? But of course, in the future, if satoshis then become very valuable as well, what do? Well, don't worry about that, don't panic. We have a solution to that as well, because Bitcoin has always been upgradable. There are some facts about Bitcoin that cannot be changed, right? For example, I mean, we might be able to, depending with consensus, change the block reward, for example, or the block size, right? And we've had those wars in the back, right? Back in the days, like where we've had, you know, block reward wars, also the block size wars as well. We've had them. That's how we had Bitcoin Cash and whatnot. So, you know, leaving that aside, you know, with Bitcoin, you can have these upgradable. There's upgradability is there as long as the consensus. Anyway, that's fine. So, but people won't change it because that's what gives it its value. Tomorrow, for example, if someone comes along and the whole community, 51% of the community agree that they want to change the block reward from 6.5, or in the future it's going to be 3.25, which is coming up in, I think, May 2024, 3.25. They want to change it back to 50 Bitcoins. Well, that doesn't work because there's not enough Bitcoin to give. So there's the problem. It's going to cause more problem, because now you have, you know, a reward size of 50, but you don't have enough coins to give everybody. So all of a sudden, the entire supply just dies out. That's one of the reasons why it can't be done as well. So those are things that cannot be changed, fundamentally cannot be changed, right? And also the community won't accept it. The other thing that cannot be changed, and that's programmatically cannot be changed, right? It was already hard coded in that there will always be 21 million coins. That was the initiation. That code cannot be changed. So Bitcoin accounts for 21 million coins, and the way it does the accounting is it kind of minuses against what the total supply is. So there's a fixed supply of 21 million coins, and it releases XYZ, and when it hits the 21 million threshold, it will not produce any more Bitcoins, and it will not, you know, you cannot mine or do whatever. Of course, mining will always exist, because mining will, so you know, like how banks operate, how banks have fee structure in, you know, for you to do transactions and whatnot. Similar way, miners will convert from mining Bitcoin to mining transaction fees, right? That's what's going to happen. Of course, not everyone's going to be making money from that. That's a different story, but it will happen, right? It will happen. So not too concerned about that. When the time comes, time comes. And remember, the time is approximately around the year 2140. 2140, that's 117 years from now. So I'm not too concerned about that. I will probably live through that, so that's fine. That's, you know, those are the things that can be done. So with Bitcoin, where it is now and the amount of adoption that's happening, the institutional, what do you call this, the institutional interest that we have, all of this says to me that it's right to pump at some stage. And this time, it's not going to just pump to 60, 70K. It has potential to go further. So a lot of people who are still on the sidelines, my advice is, like, and this is not financial advice, it's very simple, is look guys, if you are thinking about buying Bitcoin, right, or crypto, for example, crypto, let's just say crypto. Obviously, you know, there are coins that people will be pumping. That's fine by me, right? You know, you're gonna buy $50, $100, whatever you can afford, right? $10,000, $20,000, $100,000, by all means, if that's what your burn fee is, like the amount you can afford to burn, by all means, go and do that, right? No one's stopping you from that. No one can prevent you. No one can tell you what to do. That's your money. But pick coins that you can trust. Now, if we can't trust anything, we don't know who to trust, and we're confused, right? And we come to the situation where we're complete beginners, and we're like, what do we buy? I heard my mate talk about this coin. I heard my friend talk about this coin. My cousin talk about this coin. I heard this one on the news, or this one's on the papers. Do I buy them? If you want to, you go and buy them. But I say, in that scenario, when you are confused, you buy the one with the highest level of money invested, the biggest amount of funds plugged into it. And those are the top 10, right? Even forget the top 10, let's talk about the top 2, right? Bitcoin and Ethereum, number 1 and number 2. You can see the entire global market dominance is between those two, right? 70% of the dominance is between those two. One has 20%, the other one, Bitcoin, has 50%, right? Close to 50%. Of course, it changes, it varies every now and then. Not too concerned about that. But that's the dominance, right? So that's where the most of the money is. So to me, you know, of course, we talked about sound money. Like, forget that. I'm not bothered about sound money, how it's divisible, X, Y, Z. None of that business matters, right? What matters is it safe money? And this is safe money. So I know that there's billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars plugged into this. So that's safe money for me. That's where I want to plug my funds. Does that make sense, right? So that's how I look at it. And I always say, like, you know, allocate most of your assets there. Of course, you need to have a strategy, and your strategy, you know, my strategy is always, whenever you invest, whatever you buy for 5 years, because that then avoids market volatility. You know, because if you're buying for 5 minutes and the candles are shifting in every second, you've got a problem. But a lot of people who are trading and who have professional accounts, or especially charting accounts, they can see what's happening every single second, right? And it is very volatile. It goes up and down every single second, right? So when you do buy, just buy with a strategy. You know, whatever it be, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. 5 years is recommended. The reason is pretty much around that 5-year mark, you'll always have a halvening level, right? A halvening situation, right? So every 4 years we have a halvening. So by doing that 5-year thing, you benefit. Sometimes you might, if you time it well, you might get both halvenings, right? So think about it that way. And halvening, a lot of people, if they want to know, halvening is when the supply given out as a block reward is cut in half, right? So, you know, they call it halvening. So current reward is about 6.5, 6.25. So the next reward is going to be 3.12, right? 3.12, and that's going to be cut in half, and so on and so forth. So every 4 years it gets cut in half, and that's how the whole balance is kept in check, and that's how we know that it's going to last for another 117 years. But other than that, guys, I mean, I'm still looking at the monthly candle. I mean, we have just dipped a little bit, currently sitting at $26,933. So we have been kind of battling around that 27k mark, which is okay, not a problem. We did try to go to the 28 something, which was close to 29, but we got rejected. Again, not to worry, I wouldn't worry too much about it. Sometimes, you know what, when the market has left you, if the boat has left you, right, you know, I always say this, if the boat has left you, just don't worry about it. You know, we have this motto in our channel, like it's an old motto that we used to have: expect a dump after a pump and a pump after a dump. So we've had a pump, now we need to expect a dump in order to solidify what's happening. A red candle needs another red candle to confirm what the market wants to do, so that's a confirmation candle. Similar way, a green candle needs another green candle to confirm what's happening, so that way we know up and down. When you miss 1 or 2, 3%, doesn't matter. Remember, in crypto, when the market pumps, we can do 100%. So if you miss 5%, don't worry too much about it, right? You know, don't worry too much about it. It's absolutely normal in crypto to have a 50% dump and, you know, 100% pump. It's absolutely fine. You know, you can see candles dump down 10%, 20%, 30% in a single day. Absolutely fine. It's normal for us. But those are also, as a newbie, like as a person who hasn't entered the market, when you're entering, my advice is that always be aware of those situations. That, okay, these are my expectations, right? I understand. And you've got to enter with this kind of a mindset, right? And say, look, I understand that Bitcoin or any crypto could pump 100%. Right? So a $10 worth of investment could easily become $20, right? Which is completely abnormal for traditional markets, right? So you can say, right, this could happen within a single day. Fine, that's my expectation. But I also expect that I could dump similar amount, if not 50%, right? So those expectations then give you this control, and you say, right, okay, now I understand that I could go up or I could go down. So I need to minimize my risk, and to minimize your risk, you only invest what you can afford to lose. That's how you do it, right? And of course, if you're doing leverage trading, it's a different story. You know, on a 100% gain, if you do a 10x leverage, you can do, I don't know, bloody a lot of money. Basically, you can do more than that. Like a 10% pump, you can do easily 10x leverage. You can do 100% there. So that's a different story, but that's gambling, in my opinion. That's the one that gets everybody wrecked. So avoid those kind of things. But yeah, other than that, guys, look, market's looking all right. On the RSI, however, on the monthly RSI, we are kind of on the overbought territory. On the stochastic RSI, overbought territory, pointing downwards. However, the RSI is also pointing downwards, but until we close the candle, we can't really see what direction it's pointing. It is slightly pointing downwards. That's indicating that this month was bearish. That's all it is, nothing else. It's not really saying anything else. I'm not too concerned about that. However, on the weekly, it is looking a lot more positive. It's already been down there. It wants to get back up again. So it's in the oversold territory, and it wants to move back up again, which is a good indicator. But I didn't see the volume. So I was looking at the volumes as well. I was like, okay, how much money is flowing in and out? The money hasn't really been flowing in, which also tells me, you know, to put my tinfoil hat on and say that the recent pump was an isolated incident, right? So the recent dump was isolated, including the pump isolated, because that means there was some manipulation, whoever it is, most probably exchanges. Again, I can only theorize on who the exchanges could be, or who the investors of the exchange could be, or who the puppet masters are, right? But they did dump it down, and they pumped it back up again just to create confusion. People who are calm, patient, have a strategy, shouldn't be affected. You know, like for us, we in 2021, I think it was June or July, 2021, June or July, we drew a chart, and we said, if we go below 20k, right, we just put 19,900 and something pounds anyway, sorry, dollars. So we said about $20,000. If we go below that level, it's a good place to buy. All right, we buy. And we did get there. So, you know, people had, like myself, we had trades at around the 19,980 or whatever. We had trades around that level. We had trades around 17k. We had trades around 16k, 16.5k. Right, so all those thresholds were picked up. The only one I couldn't pick up, and I know a lot of other people couldn't, but there were 1 or 2 guys that got lucky and they actually picked it up at the 15.5k, which is great. I think it was 15.6 or 15.7 they picked it up, right, which is great. So they managed to get below the 16k level. In my scenario, I didn't. The lowest I got was 16.5. But the point is all the trades that we had set up in 2021 was executed, and you know, we got lucky. So happy days. For us, when the market pumped, yes, we were in profit. However, now that the market has dumped a little bit, and then obviously playing the ups and downs like fake outs and whatnot, we are concerned that we don't want to go below the 20k, because if we go below the 20k, then now we're kind of losing money, right? If that makes sense. So still hodling, haven't sold anything. I have gone in, and there's a few that were on a higher price. So for example, the ones around the 20k mark, I have moved them onto a complete different exchange, so I can put a stop loss on them. That's it. So I've put a little stop loss for some of those crypto, so because I don't want to be bleeding out. My point is, if it goes below 20k, that particular batch, if it goes below 20k, then immediately we should stop out and also have a buy order below a level like I'm looking at 17k. So around the $17,000 mark, we've got buy orders set up. So if the market dumps around the 20k, goes to the 17k, it will sell out. So we're willing to lose a bit of our funding, but the plus point is on the bottom, when we hit the 17k or around the 17k, if we're lucky, we could pick up a little bit more satoshi. So the idea is yes, we're going to lose money, but we end up gaining a little bit more satoshis. So you know what, it's a win-win as long as we can do this. And of course, if we start falling below the 17k, then the same process will apply, but I'm not doing anything right now. I'm going to observe the market to see what it wants to do. We might never go there, right? I mean, we could have an entire month of going sideways around this 25, 27k mark, right? Hover around for a little bit, and then end of the month push towards the upside for October, and see where we go. So you know what? Until the data has come around, anything I say now would be more of a speculation, because remember, these candles do not exist, right? We don't know what the data is. We don't know what's going to happen globally, geopolitics, whatnot. We don't know. So just got to stay calm, take the data as it comes, analyze it as it comes, and then make projections based on those, right? So for now, the way I've looked at it is, you know, yeah, we can see based on some historical data, this month is usually dead anyway, so I'm not too fussed about it. Next month usually ends, September's going to be dead anyway, but October is usually a good month, so let's see what happens in October. If it doesn't turn out to be a good month, because historically we've also had bad Octobers, right, or bad quarters in fact, but normally what we do bad quarters at the end of a bull market, right, or like, you know, into a bear market. Basically, that's when we do bad ones. So I'm going to look into that, see what's happening, keep a close eye. Again, not using any fancy charts or anything like that, just a simple chart with a simple RSI, stochastic RSI. That's it. That's giving me all the indication I need. I do use a heat map. I'm using a heat map because it kind of allows me to avoid the volume, right? Because the heat map is kind of showing me how much volume is and what direction the volume is moving. So I could have a completely green candle on a standard chart, but the heat map is showing me that as a in my case pink, but not, you can set it up to red or whatever. So it's showing me there's red in there. I'm like, oh, okay, so yes, it's pumped, but it's not bullish, right? So I look at that. Like when I'm looking at this month's candle, I can see that it's pumped up, it looks good, but there's a lot of bearishness in that candle just by looking at it. So that's why I use my candles in a particular way. My setup is in a particular way. It's a very basic setup anyway, right? But it gives me that data I need instantly so that I can move forward, you know, because I don't want to confuse anybody or myself with 10 different types and 50 different indicators. I've done it before, by the way, and believe me, I was so confused. I mean, there's one chart I used to use before. I think I had about 30 indicators on it. So much noise, but it was good practice. So if you do have the opportunity, if you have a pro or above, you know, account, practice put all your indicators, put all the ones, all the indicators people recommend, right? Put them all side by side, put them all on the chart, and just have a look at your chart, and you'll see what I mean, right? How much confusion, or sometimes how much confliction they have, right? So find the ones that work for you, and if you're seeing that all the others are showing you the same data in their own way, right? But if it's all the same, then you already have a good idea what works for you. So I'm just sticking with the most basic, because I looked at it and I was like, what am I paying for, right? Yes, they're fancy indicators, but what am I paying for? So the basic stuff worked for me. So I'm like, right, that's my standard. That's what I'm doing. So I actually stopped paying for TradingView. However, I think I will buy again, but I'm probably going to buy at the end of the year, because they do some good discounts at the end of the year. I think they do like 50% off end of the year. So I might buy again, but mine expired. I didn't renew it. I said, no, I'm not going to renew it. So I've left it. I just can't be really bothered to renew it. $600-700 is a lot of money, right? Right now, I'd rather buy $600 worth of Satoshis, right? So I'm not going to pay TradingView for that, especially for the fact that I'm actually only using an RSI, stochastic RSI. What's the point? You know what I mean? What's the point? So that's how I looked at it, and I was like, no, that's for me. The standard chart is enough. I don't need to pay anybody anything, because that's working for me better than what I do. And if I do pay, then I'm not going to pay full price. I'm going to look for something better, and I'm going to do it that way. So other than that, guys, I hope the video was informative. You know, stay safe. That's the most important thing. Stay calm. Market volatility is something we expect. As I said, if you're new, then you got to ask yourself the question, like, you know, is it a good time to buy or anything like that, and move with that. Because asking other people, or you know, asking other people, like, you know, should I buy here, should I do this, should I do that, you got to ask yourself that question first. It's like, what do you think is going to happen in 5 years, 10 years time? What is your game plan? What is your strategy? And then see what the answer is on your own, right? And if the answer is a positive one, then you go for it. And if the answer is a negative one, then you stay away, full stop. So that's the most important thing. That's what you got to do. Always, you know, you got to be in control. Don't let other people manipulate or control your thoughts and your views, right? I shouldn't be telling you what's going to happen in 5 years time, what I feel, because that's my opinion. You should feel what's going to happen, and then you act on that, right? So other than that, like, share, subscribe, and catch you on another one very soon. Adios, my amigos.